So let's get started. We'll be going through the memorandum for practical one. So I'll just show you how you're supposed to do it, right? The as for the design, you guys are supposed to download from I think Eve or whatever, and then just fill in the details. That's pretty much all you have to do. For me here, I'm going to let me see. I'm going to I'm going to I'm not going to touch on the design. I'm just going to leave that. And then in terms of, let me see, in terms of the requirements of the practical, I am not sure what exactly is supposed to happen, but we'll see. So I'm not sure if you're supposed to use a compiler or you're supposed to use code blocks. I'm not sure about that, because the instructions are not that clear. You guys attend class, so you should know whether a you're supposed to install a compiler separately or a batch file. Something like, if they mention the batch file, then yeah. So let's delete code blocks, right? So let me delete it first. So I'm going to uninstall code blocks so that I can show you how to set it up. So uninstall, and then yes, and then uninstall. And then I need to find, okay, that it doesn't matter. It's fine. So close. So there's code blocks. It's gone. Right, I've uninstalled it. So let's look for it, right? So for me, if you go on your computer and you click on the Windows icon, right, to search, or you go to the search bar and then you type terminal, right? You can either open command prompt or terminal. Either one is fine. And then after you open, when you click terminal, it's gonna open PowerShell. Obviously, on your side, it's not gonna have this orange colors. I've customized my terminal. And then for me, if I type G++ minus version, there it is. So there's my compiler. My compiler, it is ready, right? So in my case, in your case, it might not be installed. So what we're going to do is we're going to go online and search download code blocks, right? The very first link is going to be, it's going to point you straight to the code blocks website. And then you click on that link, and then there's a lot of options here. But then if you are not on this page, you can always navigate to this downloads page on this side. So you're going to click on downloads here. It should take us back to where we already are, which is here. And then you're going to click on the download the binary release. Click on that. You might see some ads or you might not. That's up to you. Then you choose based on your operating system. If you're using a Linux, you choose this option. If you're using Mac OS, then you choose this option. I'm using Windows, so I'm going to choose the first option. And then there's the downloads for Microsoft Windows. As you can see, there's a lot of options, right? So I want you guys to be very, very careful with setting up, with choosing the right option, right? You need to be very careful. So it depends on the architecture of your operating system, right? So how do you find all those details? So you're gonna open the search bar and then type about your PC. Just search about your PC and then press enter. And then once you're here, it should tell you what kind of a system you have, right? So there's my system. It's a 64-bit operating system, right? 64-bit. For some, it might say 32. So there's only two options, 32 and 64. Based on that, you're gonna go back to your downloads. If it's 32, then you download the 32 in executable. And then if it's 64, I think you just download the normal one. But it shouldn't have too much, it shouldn't give you too much issues, right? Try to download it, even though yours says 32. Try to download the one that I'm about to download right now and see if it's going to work. If it doesn't work, then choose the options whereby it's written 32-bit if your laptop is a 32-bit. But yeah, I think it definitely won't work. Yeah, it won't because there's this solution here. So if your laptop says 32-bit, then you download this one, second from last. And then if your laptop is 64-bit, just like mine, then you're going to download this one over here. So I'm going to click that. You can choose either links. You can go to ForceHub or SourceForge. I would choose SourceForge. Either, either is fine. You don't have to worry about it too much. You can choose either option. And then you wait for it to load. Then your your Wi-Fi is gonna download whatever. It depends on the speed of your Wi-Fi. Mine is a bit fast, so it's going to be done quickly. So let's wait for it. So there we go, it's done. So what I'm going to do is, will I need, I don't think I'll need it, so that's fine. So I'm gonna go to the downloads folder and then I'm gonna refresh. You could just click refresh button at the top to refresh so that you see the latest downloads. And then I'm gonna click on this executable, double click on it, and then it should load. It's opening up now. And then as it opens up, make sure you choose the one that says Minj W, right? So if you go back here, make sure you choose the one that I choose. It has to have Minj W or Ming W. And this one, if your laptop is 32-bit, you choose this one, Ming W, the one at the bottom, second from last. And then because the one that's written Ming W comes with something that we call a compiler. A compiler in simple terms is basically a translator. So if you do not have a translator installed in your operating system, it won't be able to translate your C++ code. So make sure you choose the right one. Then you're going to click next, and then you're going to click agree. I agree. And then there's multiple options here, right? There's minimal, then there's standard, then there's full, meaning everything. Just choose full because you want everything. You see, there's the compiler suite, right? We want the compiler suite or compiler suite. Download, make sure everything is selected and then click next. And then do not change the location. Do not make that mistake. Don't change things. Just leave it as default. Install, and then you just click install. And then there you go. That's pretty much all you have to do to download. So now it's downloading. Since that's downloading, I'm going to wait for it. It's going to create a desktop shortcut. You could just delete it if you want. I don't like apps on my desktop. It's a sign of untidiness. Imagine your screen, your desktop is full of apps or shortcuts. No, I don't want that. I can just search for them or pin them. There's many ways to go about it. So whilst that's downloading, let's get to the practical. So the purpose of this practical is for you to familiarize yourself with basic C++ programming. You are required to perform the following tasks. Do you recall the secrets of the VPL and if you submitted in P0 or Practical 0? They are still available on the respective platforms. You also have access to your submission from P0. So write a Hello World style C++ application that outputs two secrets and your student number in three different lines. Your source code should be placed in a file named main.cpp. When your program is working, get your design submission P0 design.pdf file and do not modify it. Oh, also you don't have to modify it. Oh, that's nice. So you just need, so basically they're teaching you how to, basic C++, like the structure, the flow, and everything. This should be a fairly simple practical. So what I'm going to do is that, as you can see, they say do not modify it, right? Do not modify it means do not change it. Don't put your own spiritual things there. So it's going to ask you, do you want to run it? I'll say yes, and then click finish, and then remove that. And then it's going to, my code blocks is going to run, right? For this practical, I don't think you necessarily have to use code blocks. I don't think you have to use code blocks because here they say con your what is this? Your bin folder should containing the executable file main.exe. So I don't think you're supposed to use code blocks yet, but after you've downloaded code blocks, this is how code blocks should look. Pretty straightforward, right? And then you just click create new project here, and then you create a project. But before you do that, I don't think you're supposed to have, yeah, I think you're supposed to use a batch file. So let me see, docs contained design PDF document exists under doc. Okay, so the design PDF document, so these marks come or they're given to you when you put the files in the right folders. That's what these marks are for. So main.cpp, it's inside the source folder. Main.exe is inside the bin folder. So that's basically all you have to do. And then once you're done, don't forget to zip everything, right? So let's do that. So I'm going to go to my file explorer, and then in my file explorer, I'm gonna go to desktop, and then I'm gonna create the new document, right? The new folder. So for me, I'm gonna save it on the desktop because it's easy for me to access. I'm not gonna get confused or get lost when I'm looking for my things. So I'm gonna go to desktop, right click on your keyboard. You should right click and then select new and then folder and then click on folder. And then it's gonna highlight in blue, meaning that it's waiting for you to type a name to give the folder a name. Then you give the folder a name. I'm gonna call mine practical one memo, uh, computer science 1A P01 memo. So I'm going to name mine this way. Make sure you don't put spaces, please, guys. Don't put spaces. Spaces are very bad when it comes to coding. Don't name your documents or your folders with any spaces. As you can see, in my case, I used hyphens. You can use underscores. So don't put spaces. I repeat, do not put spaces. Then within this folder, remember yours, you're gonna name it with your student number, what. So you're gonna name it this way, your folder. This is the structure for you. Mine, I'm not a student. I don't have to do all of that. You're a student, so you have to do that. You have to follow those instructions. So what I'm going to do is, let's see. Okay, I think we might have to create a batch file. Um, I doubt that you have to use code blocks yet, because do you know why I say I doubt? Because it says your bin folder is supposed to contain your main.exe. The instructions, if I'm being quite frank, or be if I can be honest with you, this is a bit, it's complicated and it's unnecessarily complicated because the instructions are not clear. But you're supposed to use a batch file, I think, because they didn't mention. Yeah, the fact that the executable is supposed to be in the bin folder, that's something, right? That says a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the folder. So I'm going to go within that folder, create more folders. So let's start with source, src. That's where anything that ends in a .cpp or .h file goes into the src folder. And then docs folder. And then what else do I need? And then bin folder. And then bin folder. So that's pretty much all you need. And remember, in your docs folder, you're gonna put in your design. For me, I'm just gonna name it. Remember, they just say don't change it, just edit, don't change it. So I'm gonna create a PDF, and if you open the PDF, you can't open it because I just created manually. So it's an empty PDF. So your docs folder is gonna have only one document. It's gonna be called design.pdf when you download it from Eve. And then there's my source folder. And then within my source folder, I need to have a main.cpp. So I'm gonna right click and say new, right? I'm trying to be as fast as I can because you guys, when you see a video and you see that it's too long, you tend not to watch it. So that's why I'm moving fast. So I'm gonna right click and then I'm gonna say new and then text document, click on that. And then I'm gonna name it main and then make sure if you notice my when I renamed this text document, it shows the extension. So I don't want it to be .txt, I want it to be .cpp. So I'm gonna replace that with .cpp and then I press enter. And then if you check here, it's gonna ask you this question. If you change a file name extension, the file might become unusable. Are you sure you want to change it? And then you're gonna click yes. And then it should change the file. So now it's main.cpp. If you cannot see the file extension, right, this is what you can do to view it. I think you can go to C. It's either, mm, okay. So this is a shortcut. So you can click on view if you're using Windows 11. You click on view and then you go down to show and then you select, make sure this is selected, make sure this has a tick on it, file name extensions. And then once that's done, you should see the extension. And then that's pretty much all you have to do for the structure, right? So we are done with the structure of the practical. So now we need to do the practical. You guys can use whatever tool you want to use. That's perfectly fine. You can still use code block, create it inside code blocks. That's fine. But I don't think they want you to use code blocks. I don't think so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use VS Code. You could right click on your main.cpp file and then edit it in Notepad or edit in Notepad++. That's up to you. But I'm going to use VS Code. So I'm going to open VS Code. It doesn't matter what you use. The main point is did you put in the answers? That's the important thing. So you're gonna go here and then okay, for me, I still had something open here. So let me close it. So close folder. Yeah, and then open folder. Then I'm gonna go to desktop and then click the folder that I want to open. Then I'm gonna select the folder and then go inside source. Because in your source folder, that's where the source code, that's where you're gonna put the source code, the main.cpp file. That's where it's located, right? So there's the main.cpp. Inside VS Code, right? The nice thing about it is there's things like autocomplete and all of that, all those nice things, and linting, all of that, finding errors. It can find errors for you if you didn't write proper C++ code. So here I'm gonna start coding, right? So every C++ program, it needs to have what we call a main function. So a main function is a function that gets called when you when you run or execute your C++ code, right? So to kind of simplify this, let me explain a bit about let's talk a bit about what are you guys doing? Like, what's the point? What are we doing? What is C++? All of that. Let's explain a bit about that. So I'm gonna create a new diagram. It doesn't matter where I save it. And then, okay, I could make it dark, but it's fine. Let's leave it bright like this so that you guys can see. So what's the whole point of programming? What are we doing when we say we are programming? or coding or whatever, like what you're doing, what you guys are doing right now. So in a way, in a simpler way, we are commanding the computer to do what we are telling it to do. That's the most basic thing that we're trying to do. But in order to tell or to instruct the computer to do something, even if it's like telling the computer, listen here, tell me hello world. It's a simple instruction like that. There's a lot involved. So the way I want you to view or picture coding, right, is that we have the computer and then there's you, right? So this is the computer, right? So imagine that's the computer and then there's you over here, right? Of which you is a person who's using C++, right? Let's say C++. Let's say that's the language that you speak, right? You speak C++, just like you have Tsongas, Zulus, Pedis, Afrikaners, you have all those people, right? That's the language that they speak. So it's the same thing here. It's two different entities or people or things that speak two different languages. You speak C++ or you are learning to speak C++ right now, right? But then the computer doesn't know C++. I want you to picture the computer as like I want you to picture this thing, both of us, right? Both the human and the computer, which is you and the computer, both of you are very stubborn in your languages. You guys only want to speak your languages. It can sort of remind you of a certain tribe. So, for example, when you go to the taxi rank, right? If you go there and you ask them politely in English and you say, "Hello, I want to know how much is the tax." The taxi driver will literally force you to speak his language and say, "Sawubona mama," meaning greetings to you, right? But then in his language, he's gonna say "Sawubona mama," right? And then after he's done saying that, it's gonna be like "Uthini mama angikuzwa mina uthini." So it basically means that what are you saying? I can't understand you. Even though he does understand you, but he's stubborn in that way that he only wants to speak his own language. So it's the same thing here. You have a computer that's stubborn, it only speaks its own language. And the computer, in simple terms, right? If you check all the textbooks, they always say a computer's language is zeros and ones. We will expand on that later on. For the sake of time, I'm not going to talk about why zeros and ones, but in a simpler way, remember a computer uses electricity. So your computer can either have battery or it has no battery, right? Basically, it can either have light or no light. So if it has battery, we say that's a one. If it has no battery, that's a zero. It's like a switch in your room, right? When the switch is on, imagine the computer has a one inside of it. If the switches are off, imagine your computer is the computer is a zero to represent off. So one represents on, zero represents off. So that's the language that the computer speaks. Then there's you over here. You have your C++, right? So you have your C++, for example, C out hello world, right? So that's you. That's you speak C++. And let's, for the sake of example, let's say even you are stubborn. You only speak C++ because that's what you're being taught to speak right now, right? So if both people or both entities or both persons they they don't want to speak another language, what's the most plausible way in order for them to understand each other? It's what we call a compiler. That's the middleman, the translator. That's why I was telling you when you download Codebox, you need to install Ming W. You need to have that Ming W, which is the compiler or the translator that you're going to use to translate your program from one language to another language. Because these two people are stubborn, they only want to speak their mother tongue or their home language. That's the only thing they want to speak. So an intermediary person or a translator needs to be in between them to translate. And this translator needs to know both languages, C++ and the computer's language. The computer's language is called machine code. For those who didn't know, it's called machine code. So this will be the compiler of which it's going to translate, right? So the compiler is going to be the translator, our translator. So the compiler, we call this one in our language, we would say this is what we call a translate. But in computer science terms, we call that a compiler. So this guy is gonna send a message to this compiler, and then the compiler is gonna be like, oh, so you want the computer to say hello world. Let me translate it in a language that the computer can understand. Then the compiler translates that hello world into zeros and ones, of which the computer can understand. So that's the big fuss about computer science. That's what we're doing right now. But you don't have to worry about the compiler. He does his job. You just need to know your language and then call this Murena over here or this guy over here to translate. And then after it translates, the computer will be able to do what you're telling it to do in C++. Remember, all we are doing right now, we are telling the computer to do something. That's all we're doing. So the name of this compiler, right, for us, right, in computer science 1A, we call this compiler is called G++. That's its name. So every time you see G++, just know we are calling the translator, the person who's going to translate our instructions, because we are instructing the computer to do something. Just like your parents tell you, go wash the dishes. That's an instruction. Lucky enough, you and your parents speak the same language. So you guys, there's no barrier in between you guys that's preventing you from understanding each other. Imagine if there was, hey, you'd be getting hidings one way because your parents are gonna be so pissed crossed at you and saying, why not doing the dishes? And then you be like, I don't know. Because let's say that's the only words you know in English and your parents mainly speak English. And then you just keep on saying, I don't know. They're gonna get frustrated at some point and they're gonna think you're cursing them or something. So sometimes the translator is very important. That's the importance of a translator. So that's pretty much what we're doing, guys. So don't think this is rocket science. So a computer, right? C++, right? And you might ask yourself, before you continue, you might ask yourself, why don't we just use English to tell the computer why C++? Why not English? Well, English, if you remember in high school, since you recently coming from high school, you know that one word can have multiple meanings in English. So that creates for something that we call ambiguity, right? That's English right there. That's big words right there. It creates something that we call ambiguity. Ambiguity, right? It basically means that it's a fancy way to say confusion. It just creates confusion. Just It's a fancy way of saying it. Ambiguity just mean confusion. So it creates this confusion, right? Because what if you're telling the computer to do something that's not lethal or that's not dangerous, but then it translates it as something that's dangerous because words have multiple meanings. For example, a if yeah if someone says a joke and then your joke and you say, hey, your jokes are killing me, man, and then you're laughing, you use the word kill. What if the computer interprets that word as it being told to take an action, and then now it's taking out guns and stuff and all those things, or grenades and things like that? You don't want the computer to be, you don't want any room for error, right? Because that's something that's possible. It can wipe out a whole nation, and it's just a simple instruction. It failed to understand what you meant by this joke is killing me. So yeah, that's why it's important to have a language that's unambiguous, right? It's big words, I know. Unambiguous. unambiguous. Yeah, I think this is how you spell it. You need to have you need to use a language that's unambiguous, right? Meaning that it has no room for potential error or potential confusion or potential miscommunication. If there's miscommunication, the computer would do its own things. And then you wouldn't want it to do its own things, right? I don't think anyone would want that. So let me save this. So the image is going to be part of so I'm going to put it under docs, right? That's where you can see this diagram for those who want to see the diagram. So that's pretty much all we are doing here. So let's create C++ program. So every C++ program, it starts with something that we call a preprocessor directive, right? It's something that starts with the hash. What does it mean, preprocessor? So I want you to learn this ability to break down words that are too big. Preprocessor. So what is pre? It means before. Before what? This word processor comes from which word? Process means to process something. So if pre means before and processor comes from the word process, that means it's before processing, right? What is processing in this case? That means before compiling. In our case, I would say this is before compiling. Compiling, spelling, compiling. So preprocessor, directive, right? So directive, the word directive, you can view it as like command, right? So directives, it's just commands that we send to this program or this app called the preprocessor or that person. Or view it as a thing, right? It's like remember everyone plays their role. It's like, for example, there's someone who's doing the package, there's people packaging, there's people mixing the ingredients, there's people doing this. So everyone is playing their own role. So the preprocessor has its own specific role. The preprocessor, all it does, right? It follows those commands. It does not understand C++. Do not make that mistake. It does not know what C++ even is. All it knows is just, oh, go fetch that, it fetches it. Go do this, it does that. So that's what we are talking to here when we use anything that has a hash symbol and then followed by a word after the hash. We are communicating with the preprocessor. In this part, we are telling it, you see how simple things can be. What does this word mean? Include. It means we are telling the preprocessor to include something. What is that thing that is supposed to include? We put in this less than and greater than symbols, and then between those less than and greater than symbols, we tell it which file to go fetch. It's like you're telling Bobby to go fetch the ball or whatever your dog is. You're commanding a dog, go fetch, go do this. That's basically what you're doing here. We are telling the preprocessor, go fetch something. What is that something? It's inside, it's this whole file. If you check this file, right, there's the file. So it's going to fetch all of these things that are here. I know it seems frightening, and yes, it is, but I just want to show you that it exists. This is a file. So we've told the preprocessor to go fetch that file. Why is it called IO stream? It's called IO because IO stands for input. Yeah, it stands for input output, and then stream is just stream. So input output stream. So that's what we are fetching. Because why? We want to output something and we want to get input. Hence, we're including or telling the preprocessor to go fetch the input output stream because we want to make use of its utilities or the tools that are in there. We want to make use of them. And then I'm going to create what we call a main function. And it always looks this way, right? You always have a return type of integer, and then the name of the function is always main. Do not capitalize, don't do spiritual things, guys. We are not in heaven. Don't be doing spiritual things, please. You follow what you're being told. It's main, small letters everywhere. And make sure there's a space between int and main. If you don't put a space, look at what happens. And then you see this little red line here. Now you're gonna have a headache. So don't do things that you're not taught to do. So you're gonna put a return type int followed by a space and then followed by the name of the function over here. And then followed by two round brackets. And then after the two round brackets, you're gonna put two curly braces or two curly brackets, right? And then anything, basically what this means, right, is anything within this curly brace, it forms part of this main function. If you remember in maths, right, you did functions, right? It's exactly the same thing. The only difference is that now it's in code. And then we need to return 0 like this. 0, what you see 0, right? What this line does, right? So there's something called also comments, right? Comments is basically, when you're on Instagram and you comment on someone's post, basically you're just explaining the post, right? So in a way, there's something similar to that in coding. We call that comments, whereby you put in two forward slashes next to the line that you want to explain. So I'm going to explain here and then I'm going to say, um, this tells the operating system that everything went well. So this just tells the operating system that, listen, my C++ code had no errors. Everything went well. That's all it does, right? And it needs to be there. You can omit it. I would say it's optional because the newer versions or the newer compilers, they do add it. So it's optional. You can compile your code without it. It's totally fine. And then now let's talk about the important part, right, which is the code. So you guys are supposed to output. So they say it's a hello world style C++ application, meaning that it's a basic application. It's very basic. So I'm gonna go back here. Okay, I'm gonna close code blocks. Inside code blocks, right? Once you have code blocks installed, um, oh, for you guys, it's gonna be a bit different since, yeah, I was supposed to, but then there is a tutorial whereby I show you how to install code blocks, like brand new, I think. I'll look for it. But once you have code blocks installed, but then okay, once you have it installed, make sure you go to settings, right? And then you go under compiler. So settings and then compiler. Make sure you do this. If you don't, you're gonna have issues. Um, okay, something is not right. Yeah, like I said, I didn't install. I had it installed previously, so that's kind of messing up my stuff. But I'll send you guys a separate video that explains everything. Or I'll try to install it again after I'm done writing the solution. So you guys are supposed to output. How do you output? So to output, right? And that's why we told the preprocessor to go fetch this because we want to do input and output. And we do that via something called a stream. You can a stream, think of for Zulu and other people out there, Mfuleni, right? Mauye Mfuleni, or when you go to the river, whatever, the river banks, there's always, there's water going down, right? Spiraling water going downwards like that, right? So that water, we agree usually in English, we call that a stream of water, right? It's like a stream, right? It's traveling, something like that. So even in C++, they sort of like borrowed that concept. So IO, like you said, it stands for input, output, right? And then stream, just stream. So it's like a channel. Think of it as like a pipe where things travel through. I want you to picture it in that way. It's the simplest way of thinking about it. So we told the preprocessor to include that. So now we can use that. So what are the two things that we can use to get input and output? The first one is C out. Then the second one is C in. But this C in and C out, they are stored inside something. That's something I want you to think of it as like a toolbox. So they're stored inside a specific toolbox. So in C++, if you don't say which toolbox they're stored in, it's going to have errors. That's the problem in C++. But then there's two ways to avoid that error. If you don't want to specify the toolbox all the time, you can tell C++, listen, I'm going to use everything within this toolbox. So don't shout at me and say, I don't know which toolbox are you getting this from. So don't shout at me. So that's the first way. And I would advise you guys, since you're still first years, let's do it that way. That first way of telling telling C++ that you don't want it to shout at you when you don't tell it where are you getting this tool from? Basically you don't want to always tell C++ which toolbox you're using. You can just tell C++ that, but before you start, and you see you must always put it before int main, before that function. You must say using namespace standard like this. This just tells C++ that, listen, C++, I'm going to use a toolbox that's called std. That toolbox has a name or like a label. If you know toolbox, if you don't know a toolbox, think of it as like a box. Remember, each box can store specific things. You can have a box for toys. You can have a box for books. You can have a box for food. Maybe your ramen noodles, right? Or your noodles. You can have a box for that. Things like that, right? But then how would you distinguish between them? They have labels. So if it's a toy box, it's going to have a label written toys. So C++ has a box whereby it has a label std, right? Not the one that you're thinking about, the sexually transmitted diseases, not that one. It's STD, meaning standard. Don't get funny ideas, guys. It means STD is just an abbreviation for standard, right? So that means you're getting something from the standard library. In another way, there's many ways to explain this. Another way to view it is like, think of a library whereby you find books, right? So you are just telling C++ which library to find these books over here or these tools, C out and C in, which library. That's another way you want to pick, if you want to picture it. That's another way of viewing it. So when you write, and this will never change. Also, this will never change. And then also this will never change. The only thing that might be different is what I'm about to type now. It depends on your program. So now I can use this as they are, C out and C in. So C out, right? It's short for characters out, right? Or characters in, right? Or in the way I like to view it, you can imagine the C inside C out stands for console. Console is basically this black thing, this terminal here. This is what we call a console inside the computer. That's what we call a console. Not a gaming console. Don't also mistake it on that. It's not a gaming console. So console output, that's how I like to view it. And then this would be console input. So there's many ways you can picture it. So C out, just know it's for outputting, right? So just I want you to picture it. This terminal here, this black thing over here, where you see where I'm typing right now, that's what we call the console. So that's where information is going to be displayed. So you can imagine this, these tools over here, they represent that terminal or that console. So if you want to send something to it, you use C out because I want to output to the console. I want to get input from the console. So you'd have to say C out like this, space, and then two less than symbols, right? Why two less than symbols? There's I'll just give you a shorter explanation for that. If you use one less than symbol, people might think you're trying to say maybe something like this, right? One is less than two. You see, it gets confusing if you leave it as one less than symbol. So that's why we use two here. So it's a simple example, right? If you want to go in deeper, you can go in deeper. But this is the simplest example of why you need two of this so that you don't make the mistake of using one. You use two and look at the direction. That's the direction is important. Where is it facing? This way. So that means if I type hello world like this, and if you want to output text to the console, you need to put it within double quotes. So let me delete this. So you need to have one pair of double quotes and then a closing set or the closing pair of double quotes. Then within this double quotes, you type in the thing that you want the computer to display. So I just wanted to show hello world, the semicolon like this. And the way a computer is so literal, right? It's gonna send one by one. It's gonna send it's gonna send H, E, L, L, O, comma, and the space. Remember, there's a space. It's also gonna send the space. Where is it sending it to? Direction. The arrows are pointing that way. So I'm gonna see it on the black screen. And in C++, just like in English, you have a full stop. Everything, every statement or every we call them statements, and then in English we call them sentences. In C++, it's called a statement. So each statement, it needs to be terminated, or you need to end it with a semicolon, just like you end every sentence in English with a full stop. Do not forget the semicolon or else your code won't run. So let's try that. So C out less than less than, and then hello world, and then semicolon, and then done. If you forget the semicolon, let me remove the semicolon. You see, it shows me the red line to show you that. You see the nice thing about this, it tells you I expected a semicolon, but then if you use code blocks, trust me, it's not going to help. It might, but most of the time it's not going to help you. So there it is. And then I'm going to try and run the C++ program. How do you run it? That's the question. So I'm going to go back here to main.c++, where you must look for the location where the .cpp file is, especially the one with the main function, the one with this function main. That's the file you want to run. So I'm going to right click here, and then I'm going to say open in terminal, because we are not using code blocks, we're using the terminal. Then I'm going to call, and you remember we talked about the compiler or the translator. His name is called G++. So I'm going to call him, right, to translate my code. Space, don't forget the space, followed by the file that I want to translate. The file that I want to translate is called main.cpp. And then press enter. And then after translating, you should see an executable file. There's the executable file, right? Now I can just minimize this, and then I can just double click on this executable file. Okay, you see that the problem is if you run it this way, it just connect. It ran, right, but it quickly disappeared. So I'd have to run it inside of my terminal. So I'd have to type in its name a.exe and then press enter. Okay, my bad. I'm supposed to say okay, I'm supposed to say a. Oh no, it doesn't want. So dot doesn't want me to say dot a.exe. Yeah, okay. So the thing about computers, right, they're very confusing. So always, before you run it, you always need to put in this dot and this forward slash. So what does the dot and the forward slash mean? They mean within my current folder, where I am right now, look for the file there. If you run it like this, right, without the dot forward slash in front, like this, it's gonna look for it everywhere. And it's gonna start, when it starts looking for it, it's gonna look for it in the wrong place. Where does it look for it when you write it that way? I know it's weird, but that's the operating system. It's actually going to look for it in the C drive. It's going to look for it here. Do you have an a.exe here? Nope, it's not there, which is very weird. I don't know why computers are like that, but yeah. So that's why you need to put in that dot forward slash. the dot forward slash, then followed by the name of the file that you want to run. And then there's the text, hello world. Now you might ask yourself, Marase, you said the computer speaks zeros and ones. Where's the language of the computer? I see my C++ code. There it is inside VS Code. There it is. I see it. But where's the translated version? It's the .exe file. So if you right click on .exe and then you open in Notepad++, there you can see, you see that you're seeing spiritual things now. So this is what you would have to write if you're not writing C++. You'd have to know it by head and make no mistake. You see all of this thing, just run hello world. You see how long this file is. Look at how many lines here on the left-hand side. So this is the machine language. This is the language that the computer speaks. So it's impossible for you to write this. So that's why languages like C++ were invented, to make it easier for you guys to use code, to write code, to instruct the computer on what to do. So this is not just what you guys are supposed to do, right? They want you to output 3 lines, right? You see here, it only outputted 1 line. So let's try to output another line. In your mind, you'll be like, well, Say taught me that I just need to say C out and then put in the arrows to point the direction of where that output is supposed to go. And then let's say this is my student number, right? And then put the semicolon because each statement or each sentence needs to be terminated with the semicolon. Yeah, I'm good. Everything is fine. Let's do it again. So the boring part about this, right, is that you're gonna see it now. I always have to compile again because I've made changes to my file, so I need to translate it again. After translating it again, then I do the ./a.exe, and then it runs, and then now you'd be like, Mara, say this doesn't look pretty. Well, that's the code that you wrote. The computer took you literally. You're supposed to tell it that after the exclamation mark, move to the next line. How do you do that? So here you put in something that we call an end of line character, ENDL, which means end the line there. That means anything that comes or anything that's sent is going to be displayed on a new line. So that's what this means. It means end this line. In full, we should be called end line, but it's just ENDL, which just means end this line. So this means stop at this exclamation mark. That means anything after the exclamation mark will be displayed in on the next line. So let's go back and then I'm gonna press the up arrow to view the previous commands that I've typed. Press the up arrow and then there we go. You see now it shows it on 2 separate lines. So that's coding for you. But they want you guys to put in 3 lines, right? So I'm gonna put in 3 lines. I don't know whether the student number, oh yeah, so you need to output 2 secrets first, and then the last line should have your student number. So since everything, remember the computer, it runs everything, it reads everything from top to bottom. So that means if it reads everything from top to bottom, that means if I put in a C out statement here below, that means it's going to be displayed after this, which is a problem. I do not want it to be displayed after. I want it to be displayed before the student number. So I'm going to put it here. And then I'm just going to put in that auto suggestion. So, hey, my name is Caitlin. And then don't forget the end line so that anything that's displayed after Caitlin will be on a new line. That's very important. And then I'm going to clear my screen by typing CLS. And then I'm going to call my compiler, which is the guy who's supposed to translate. And then I'm going to run the translated version, which is the version that has the language of the computer. And then press enter. And then there's my practical. It's done. So I have hello world, or I have the first secret, and then I have the second secret, and then I have the student number. So these secrets, right? You must go look for them on Eve. I do not know what they are. Me, I just made an example. I just outputted hello world and my name is Caitlin. So there it is. And then if you want to install the compiler, right? So let's say, right? Let's say that you guys are not supposed to use code blocks yet. You're supposed to use a page file. Let me show you how to install the compiler. So you're gonna search, you're gonna go to your favorite browser. Before I'm gonna do a page file, you'll understand what a page file is. So let me see how much time. So 56 minutes, that's still okay. So I'm gonna go here and then I'm gonna download C++, right? The C++ compiler. So I'm gonna say C++ compiler. Um, I think it's my MSys, yeah, MSys2. So yeah, you can just search like this, or you can say, let me see. You can do this, right? You can search C++ compiler MSYS2, and then you click on the first link over here, and then you go down, and then you download this executable, right? And then it's gonna load, and then you just keep on pressing next until it shows you install. Then you click install. Once it's done, you just close. Okay, once it's done, right, it's gonna show you finished MSys2. It's finished setting up. Then it's gonna show you run MSys2 now, right? It's gonna show you that option. So let's install. Let me unpin this. Let me delete it, right? Let me delete it, uninstall it, and then install it again, because you guys are still beginners and they expect you to do non-beginner stuff, which is things that pros should be doing. So I'm going to show you step by step. So I'm going to say next, uninstall. So I'm uninstalling it for now so that I can install it again, right? So that I can show you guys how to set it up. Because when you first, so finish. So when you first run this, right? When you don't have, so when you open the terminal, right, like this, and you type G++, and then you type minus minus version, it's going to show you this red error, right? Meaning that it's not installed, which is perfect. That's what I want. So on your side, before you run, it's going to show you this, which is perfect. That's fine. Don't stress. You're going to close it and then search, and then go online and search C++ compiler MSys2 like this. Then you click on this first link, the one that is www.msys2.org. Click on that link and then scroll down and then follow the instruction. Do all the steps, 1, 2, 3, going downwards. Do all of those steps. You're going to click here to download the executable or the installer. So we're installing the compiler now, that translator guy that I was talking about. That's who we are installing now. And then it's downloading. My Wi-Fi is a bit fast. On your side, it might be a bit slow. So there it is. It's done. And then I'm going to click on the executable. And then it's going to open. It's going to load. And then it's going to show you this. Welcome to MSys2 setup. And then I'm going to click next, right? And then it's going to tell you where the installation folder will be stored or will be installed. Then I'm going to click next. I won't change anything. Don't touch anything. And then I'm going to click next. And then there it is. It's installing now. So there's no install button. There's just next. And then once you're done, we should be at this stage, right? And then it's going to open automatically, which is fine. It will open automatically, which is fine. So let's wait for it to finish installing. So this approach, right? There's many approaches. That's the thing. There's many ways to install the compiler. I'm choosing this approach because you're gonna get the latest compiler. It's gonna show the latest one. I think it's 2024. It's gonna show 2024. Or if there's a newer one, it should be 2025, but it's gonna show 2024. That's the latest one. If you choose to do it in another different way, you'll be seeing compilers from like 2011, something like that, 2014 version and things like that. We do not want that. It's always good to have the latest and stable versions of software. So there's the my sys2 folder as a command. Don't touch anything, just click finish. You should open up, there should be a pop-up, right? You see an app opened up automatically. So let me close my settings. Then I'm gonna maximize here so that you guys can see. And then I'm gonna zoom in. How do you zoom in? You see on your trackpad, there's something called a trackpad right there. You're gonna take two of your fingers and then spread them like this to zoom in. Or you can just Google how to zoom in because it's hard to explain when you don't see. So let me do this. Let me see on screen keyboard. Yeah. Okay, no, it doesn't show. The on-screen keyboard doesn't show. But those who understand, they know. You just need to zoom in. So we are at step 5 now. So we need to go to step 6. So step 6, that's where we install the GCC. You see, there's that word again, Ming W or Minch W. And then I'm gonna copy it like this, right? You click this button here to copy, and then go back to here, and then right click, and then paste. And then after pasting, be sure to remove this dollar sign. You see, there's an extra dollar sign. I do not want all those dollar sign. So to move to the beginning, you can just press Control A. So there's the cursor there. This line that keeps on blinking, that's what we call a cursor. So I need to use that to delete that extra dollar sign. Once the extra dollar sign is deleted, you can just press Enter. Or if you don't want to go through all of that, you can just you can copy it manually like this. And then right click and say copy and then paste. That's up to you. And then press Enter once you've copied and pasted the same command. Then it's going to tell you all the things that are going to be installed. So this is the compiler. That's all the things that are going to be installed. Then it's going to ask you, do you want to proceed with installation? Question mark. There's a yes or a no. So yeah, you either type in Y for yes or N for no. I'm going to type in Y for yes because I want to install it. And then press enter after you've typed Y. Then it's going to do its own things. You don't have to touch it. It's installing it for you. You don't have to worry about that. So this is exactly the same screen I'm seeing. And then once it's done, you can now type in GCC or G++. It's going to recognize it. But this GCC or G++, it's only after you've installed it, it will only be recognized within this software or this terminal. But we do not want to use that terminal. We want it to be accessible globally, right? So we want everyone to have access. I want to have access to it irregardless irregardless of which terminal I use. It needs to pick up G++. But I'm gonna show you now. So I'm gonna type in clear to clear the screen, and then G++ minus minus version, enter. There it is, right? Like I said, 2024 I think is the latest one so far. And then there it is, it's installed. So we have it. But let me show you what I was talking about. It only runs within this kind of yellow application. But if I go to the search bar and I type terminal, and then I open the terminal, the one that Windows comes with, and then I type in G++ minus minus version. Oh, this time around it worked. Okay, but it's not gonna work. It shouldn't have worked. I think it's because of the settings. I already had it as an environment variable. It should still show you an error there. So to fix that, you're gonna open your search bar and type in environment, and then you're gonna see edit system environment variables, or you can say edit environment variables for your account. Either one is fine. Then you're gonna click, it should show you system properties. Then click on environment variables. And then there we go. Let me see the path here. Okay. And then you're going to go to system variables, right? And then click on path. The variable name should be path. So it's going to be path, and then you're going to click on edit. And then these are all the environment variables, right? So if you check here, I think I should have, I'm not sure if it's set, but I think it is already set. Seems like I didn't set it here. Let me go back here. So let's go back here. And then path, yeah, let's click user variables for, let's click this part and then click on path, make sure it's highlighted, and then click on edit. Okay, it's already set for me this side. So this is the environment path that you want to set. So this is what you want to find. So it's MC64 UCRT64. So I'm gonna go here and then go to C drive, right? And then that's why it worked, because I hadn't deleted it. But if I delete it, let me show you. I'm going to delete it now. Let me show you. Let me delete it, right? So there it is. And then I'm going to delete it. And then I'm going to click OK, right? And then I'm going to open my terminal again. And you see that now it's going to show red on the screen. Oh, it didn't. That's weird. But yeah, it's supposed to fail. So for you guys, it should fail. So once you're done, you're gonna go to C drive. There's MC64. Look for MC64 folder. Double click on it, and then go to UCRT64, and then go to bin folder, and then go to the top to copy the location, and then right click here and say copy, and then go to that environment variables thingy. You can either set it, you can either set it up here, or you go to path here. Either one is fine. I'm gonna put it, let me put it on system. So I'm gonna put it here on system, click on path, and then click on edit, and then click new to add a new entry, and then right click and then click paste. And then I'm gonna click OK after pasting, and then I'm gonna click OK again, and then OK again, and then done. Now you've set up the compiler, everything should be fine. Everything should work 100% perfect. You won't need to use this terminal anymore. You just open the search bar and search terminal or CMD, whatever you comfortable with. I use terminal, which is the PowerShell terminal. So I use that. So let's create the batch file. So what is the batch file? So let me show you, explain what the batch file is. So if you notice something, right? Did you notice something? Every time I want to run this code, I have to open it inside the terminal like this, and then type G++ again. I have to keep on typing G++, and what every time I have to type the same thing. Isn't there a convenient way for me to stop that? There is. There's something called a batch file. So I'm gonna right click here and then click new and then text the document, and then I'm gonna call this build, and then the extension is gonna be dot BAT, which is just an abbreviation for batch file. So are you sure you want to change it? Yes. Then I'm gonna right click my batch file and open it inside Notepad. Whether it's Notepad++ or Notepad, that's up to you. So I'm gonna open it with Notepad++, and then I'm gonna write the commands that I was typing on the terminal. So I'm gonna say G++, and then main.cpp, right? And then after compiling, right? So this is the compiler, and then this is the name. So if you notice something, right? When I compiled main.cpp, right? When I compiled main.cpp, it generated a a file called a.exe, right? So that file a.exe, like this, That's the name of the executable file that gets generated automatically. So the name is A. To change that name so that it has a different name, you can say -O to say that the object file or the output file should be named main, like this. So the file now is gonna, when it creates a file, it's gonna be called main.exe instead of a.exe. If you check the practical, they want it to be called main.exe. So I'm right. I think you guys are supposed to use a batch file for this, which is kind of savage because this is too extreme for first years, but it is what it is. That's life. And then after doing this, I know for a fact it's gonna create a file. So I'm gonna put what we call comments, right? Remember we created comments in C++ to just add extra information to explain what's going on. So inside a batch file, you type in rem first, and then put a space, and then you put in the information that you want to put in, the comment to explain what's going on. So I'm here, I'm translating C++ to machine code. So I'm translating the C++ code to machine code, right? And then I'm gonna put in another comment, rem. Then here I'm running the code. So now you're running it. How do you run it? It's dot / so that you tell the compiler or the computer that the file that I'm looking for is contained within the current folder. And it's called a.exe. No, it's called main because I used -O to rename it. When you have -O, you must always pass the new name for the executable file. And then save. Don't forget to save your changes. So let me show you how to save. So you see, it should be orange on the left-hand side, but then after saving, it must be green. So you either click this save all or save but let's click save. Don't click save all. Click save to save these changes for this current file. And then you're gonna see on the left-hand side, it's gonna be green. And then I'm gonna go back to my folder. Make sure you refresh so that you get the latest update. So I'm gonna click refresh, and then it refreshes. You see now how easy it will be to run. I just double click, and then you see, it runs it. But then there's still that problem. It disappears after running. That's the problem. How do we fix that? In a batch file, there's something that we call pause, to pause the program in order to see output. So I'm gonna put in the command pause. It's like pressing the pause button on the remote. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm pausing this process so that I can see what was displayed. So I'm gonna put in pause to say pause, stop. Then I'm gonna refresh and then double click. You see that now my terminal is going to pause, right? So there it is, it paused. So there it is, it paused. So with the batch file, it seems like, and then in order to close, you need to press any key. So let me press enter, that's how you close. So it seems like it doesn't want me in the batch file, right? It won't want you to put // or you can let me see // nah. So don't put in the when you're running it on the terminal, you must put in the // but when you inside the batch file, don't put it, just write main.exe like this. And then I'm gonna refresh and then run it again. We should see output now. Yeah, so there's the output. Hello world, my name is Caitlin, student number. And then pause, there's that pause keyword. So what the batch file, it's sort of like a way to not repeat ourselves. We write all the commands that are supposed to run on the terminal inside the batch file so that we don't keep typing them over and over. That's the whole point of the batch file. And then after it has paused, you see that I can now read my output. Once I'm done reading my output and I'm sure everything runs well, I can press any key on the keyboard or I can just exit and then done. I'm pretty much done. Almost done. There's one important thing. They said if you read the instructions, The bin file is supposed to contain the executable file. And how is the executable file generated? It's generated by running this whole instruction. So to generate this file, let me teach you a trick. You put in this greater than symbol, which means is to redirect. You are sending it somewhere, right? So this is gonna return something, this whole line, this whole thing that I've highlighted. It's gonna return something, which is what a main.exe file. It's gonna create a main.exe file. But that main.exe file, we want it sent or redirected to this side. Which side? The bin folder, right? But this batch file is currently within which folder? That's the tricky part about batch files. They will chow you nicely if you're not careful. Let's look at the batch file. The batch file is currently in which folder? In the source folder. In order for me to go to get to the bin file, I would have to move outside of the batch of the source folder, right? How do I do that inside the batch file? You do that by typing in two dots and a backslash. This translates to you moving outside of this file. So this two dots and backslash, it's equivalent to me doing this. There's a source folder, and then I move out of the source folder. So now I'm currently here, but I want to move into a specific folder, which is which folder? The bin folder, which is this folder. So how do I do that? I just put in the name here and I say bin, right? I know it's a bit complicated. Just hang in there, guys. But this means move outside of the folder. The two dots means move outside of the folder. Which folder? The folder of which this batch file is currently stored in. Once I'm outside of that folder, I can now move into the right folder that I want to move into, which is bin. So this hypothetically speaking, it should, you see that bin folder is still empty. If I refresh this, bin folder is still empty. But now since I've updated my batch file, it should have that main.exe inside of it. Before we do that, we need to save our changes. And then after saving our changes, we refresh here, and then we double click the batch file. And then, okay, now it's giving me that error again that I got. I guess I have to, let me see, let me press enter. I guess I have to find out how to redirect. Yeah, it's not stored. I have to find out how to redirect with C++. How do you send it to another folder? Mm, this shouldn't work, right? Because it's not Java. But let me see. I'm just trying out something. I want to see if it's gonna work. Yeah, it's not Java. So I'm gonna make it this way, right? I'm gonna make it simple. I'm gonna do this. Mm, do, 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 do. I'm gonna change direct, right? I'm gonna move outside of this folder and then move into the bin folder and then compile and then do that. That, let me see. Um, let me look at the G++ flags, right? So minus O, so it compiles and assembles files but doesn't link them. Okay, that's okay, yeah, without linking. Provides debugging feature for your program. It shows all warnings. It turns all standard C++. Make files. Bonus round. Absolute adds the computer. I'm trying to check here if there's a possible way to, there should be a possible way to do that, to do this. Duh. It's similar to hyphen wall, blah blah blah, auto optimize. Yeah, I don't see an option here because there should be an option. Prints out the version of the compiler. I do not want that. Compile source code to object file, but then stops there. It turns on optimization. Okay. There's a lot of use the given directly as a place to search for include files. Yeah, I don't see an instruction for this. I don't see it. Yeah, I don't see it. Mm, let me say G++ options. Pedantic F option. Mm, mm, yeah, I don't see that option to redirect the files. I guess I I guess let me see. But then there should be a way. There should be a way to solve this. But to do simple things like compiling this should be enough. The only part that's missing is to put this executable inside the bin folder. Inside C++, I don't know how you do that, and I'm not seeing it as an option here because it was supposed to be listed as an option, especially with the cheat sheet. Because these are most of the options that you use. So the fact that it's not shown here kind of says a lot. Yeah, I don't see it. So let me see here. So, okay, the vision, I don't need that. Standard. Yeah, there's quite a lot, but I don't see the options. The one to redirect the, yeah, to redirect the file into the folder. So I guess I'll make a short video once I've done research on that. But then that's the only small thing that's missing is to redirect this bin, the executable inside the bin folder. And then after that, you run it. So for now, yeah, I think I've explained quite enough for this practical. So yeah, that's it for now. I'll upload the second part of the second video. It's gonna be maybe 2 minutes or 3 minutes short to explain that part on how to redirect it to go into that other file. And okay, it does. Okay, I think it's a Windows issue if I recall. If I recall, yeah, if I recall this properly, I think it's a Windows issue. I don't know whether it wants me to put in the one explicitly like this and then do that and then bin, then main.exe. Let me see. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's a Windows issue this. So let me copy this because it did work last year when I was using this terminal over here. And then with this terminal, it mimics a Unix system. So if you have a MacBook, it mimics your MacBook. That's basically what it does. So now I need to run build dot bet build dot bet. Okay, okay, batch files are. I think I did once use it. Did I? I think I once used it. I don't know, but I think I once did it. Okay, the one. Let me remove the one. I think I once did it. Let me try doing it manually. Let me do it manually. MSys2, but I think I did it last year with this terminal and it worked. It's just that Windows has its own issues sometimes. So I'm gonna change every backslash to a forward slash, enter, then list everything, and then G++, main.c++, main, and then send it to the bin folder. Mm, okay, seems like it's still not working. I'll check it out. Then I'm gonna upload part two. It's just a small issue, but it does work with the batch file. It's just a small issue of redirecting the executable file into the bin folder. So let me not make this video too long, and then I'm gonna quickly find out how to do that. Then I'm gonna make a video. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. It's very important you guys subscribe. Please don't forget to subscribe.